I did not realize just how much I was eating until I started weighing my food. Imagine thinking that you're eating healthy, that your portions are correct, and then you buy a food scale and start measuring your food. Then you realize that all of the food that you should be eating for the whole day or even 2 days is what you are consuming for breakfast in calories. Yes, that's exactly what happened to me. We need to talk about this more, especially in the Nigerian and African fitness community, because African foods, Nigerian foods are very calorie dense. And the truth is, if you don't pay attention, no matter how small your portions are, no matter how much you try to track the foods that you consume, you may still end up consuming more calories than you are supposed to for your body type or for your fitness goals in one day or in one meal. Even though our meals are now tracked in the sense that you can measure the amount of calories or the macros, micros, nutrients in the different types of food per 100 grams or 200 grams, 300 grams, 500 grams, whatever the quantity, there are still people who don't know how to track these things. And a lot of the times you can mistrack, or the ingredients, the foods, the goods that you buy, especially packaged ones, may not actually be tracked correctly. I cannot tell you the number of times that I have used Google to check the standard calories that should be in a certain type of food, and then I compared that with what was written on the label of the product, and the difference was quite much. Let me give you what my typical Nigerian breakfast used to be. It used to be oats, and I didn't used to measure the oats. So it used to be oats, about 3-4 tablespoons of oats. Then I used to put a lot of powdered milk. I used to put sugar. That was for the oats. And I used to have a side of eggs. Now, if you know how Nigerian eggs are prepared for things like yam or plantain, you fry the eggs in oil, you add tomato, you add onions, you add veggies, whatever you want to add in there, you add it. I used to do about 3 eggs for this, and I will have tea and then bread. Tea here is not green tea or black tea. It's like beverage, like Milo, milk, sugar. Guys, when I tracked this thing the first time, the entire calorie count was like 1,500 to 1,800 calories. I was so shocked. I was like, what? This is crazy. After that, I literally started tracking everything. I tracked everything. For every single food that I was consuming, I tracked it. The truth of the matter, which a lot of us struggle to accept, is that as long as you are African, as long as majority of the foods that you have been accustomed to before you started taking your fitness and your health seriously are original African meals, you will have to do a lot of work to reduce the quantities, to reduce the portions, to adjust your recipes so that these meals are still healthy enough for you to consume and hit your fitness goals. And 9 times out of 10, once you begin to prioritize health and fitness, you will simply not be able to eat food mindlessly without paying attention to what goes into your body. Why do I say this? Apart from being calorie dense, our foods are also given to us in large portions from the time that we are small. So we grow up with large appetites, being used to eating large portions of food. And by the time you start weighing your food or scaling your food according to what should be the standard consumption for an adult human, not to talk of an adult human that has fitness goals to hit, you now realize that you've been eating like 3, 4, 5 times more than what you should normally eat if you want to maintain a certain physique. And we already know, as we grow out of being teenagers, your body starts to retain fat more. So foods and quantities of foods that you were eating when you were a teenager, but they weren't affecting you, they weren't making you gain weight. If you remain sedentary after you are a teenager and you still maintain the same quantities of food, you may begin to add weight in places that you don't like. So yeah, those African foods are making you fat. Those Nigerian foods are making you fat. Back to me and what I started to do once I started scaling my food and realizing that everything I was eating was just too much. First of all, I had to reduce the quantities little by little. It wasn't sudden. I gradually reduced the things I was eating, and I took out some things completely, some things like oil, some things like palm oil, some things like rice. Those ones were easy for me to take out. Some things like swallow, they were easy for me to take out because I can go without eating them. But for things like oats, things like eggs, I reduced the quantities, and I also changed the way that I was cooking. I started to boil the foods more instead of frying. So I just went for boiled options, boiled eggs. I even stopped eating baked goods, baked food at one point in time, simply because I wanted to adjust my taste buds. And while most people worry that they will lose taste in the foods they are used to, that will simply not happen. Instead, what's going to happen is that your taste buds are going to adjust to the new way of eating that you adapt. The more you do it, the more you get used to it, just as with everything else. There are times where we as Africans, because most of us were not brought up eating fruit, eating protein, eating fiber in large quantities consistently. If you have to learn how to eat these things for yourself, for your health, for your fitness, it's going to be as if you're learning from scratch. And so you literally have to condition your mind, condition your body to be used to these things instead of being used to eating swallow every day or every other day, instead of being used to eating big quantities of bread and egg every morning, big quantities of jollof rice or any kind of rice every day, big quantities of things like plantain porridge every other day. Our foods are very nutritious, but the quantities that we eat are the things that need adjusting. So go ahead and comment below and let me know what you think about this subject, what you think about African foods being the reason why a lot of us are big, even though we don't want to be big. Another thing I do want to mention is there are people who still eat African foods, but they completely remove oils. For example, people cook soup, but they don't use palm oil. They cook things like porridge, but they don't use palm oil. Palm oil is one of the most staple oils here in Nigeria, and I'm sure other African countries, because it's an African oil. And we add it in virtually every soup, except maybe things like white soup. We add this palm oil in almost every soup, every porridge, yam porridge. We use it a lot, and the quantities are often very generous. You go to make stew, and you're pouring in so much oil that you can see the stew. Most people make stew and the stew is half the pot and oil is the other half of the pot. So there are a lot of ways that you can approach eating African foods, but you still make it healthy. You can also choose to just completely reduce the way you consume African foods and opt for the simplest, most nutritious foods in quantities that will make you hit your weight goal or your fitness goal while remaining healthy. The good thing is, as you get used to these foods, your cravings also adjust and you just get used to the entire thing. I hope you found this video helpful. I'm definitely going to bring more of these. I'll see you guys in my next video.